What's up, listeners? You are listening to CuboldCast. This is our second episode in our October horror series. In this episode, we will be talking about the indie horror game Little Nightmares. So what have you guys been playing lately?
Let me think.
Well, both me and Caleb played Little Nightmares.
Recently.
I played it again for the second time. I played it for the first time a year ago.
Yeah.
But we played Resident Evil before that, which we already did a podcast on.
Yes.
I've mostly been focusing on Little Nightmares, but I'm hoping to play the second chapter of the new of Raft today, what came out today.
We don't really know much about it, though.
Yeah, well, I know there's a new city. It's supposed to be pretty big.
Wait, an actual city this time?
An actual
city,
with
like robots that you
dome
can kill
around it.
Wow.
More lore, more story development, new locations. I think bigger islands.
The island was already huge.
I know.
Main one. Yeah, the main issue with Raft, which it's a survival game. I was going to say survival horror. We've been doing too many horror games. It's a survival game where you start out with like a little piece of raft, a couple squares, and you slowly get salvage and you build up the raft till you can make it literally like Titanic sized.
Yeah.
But you sail to different islands and you find creatures on those islands, and there's a story that's not fully developed yet, but they're slowly adding pieces of the story.
Yeah, when we played, it was very short. Like, it was like, we played for like 10, 15 hours.
Which actually, that's not that short.
It's pretty decent.
I don't know how many chapters they're adding, but...
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I find it interesting how you start out in a raft, and I think it's cool how eventually you wind up in the places you're supposed to be. And I remember when we first started, I don't know what happened, but we didn't know what to do, so we started flipping out. And
we had so many issues with it.
We lost our raft.
So what happened was we went to an island, and we didn't know we could anchor our raft down. So basically the island spawning mechanic is tied to where the raft is. So when the raft got too far away from us, the island just despawned.
Yeah.
And that was actually the first video we had on our YouTube channel.
Yeah. I remember it started out with everyone just flipping out, Brian
screaming.
Hyperventilating.
I think we still have it, but it's not...
It's unlisted.
It's unlisted, so you can't really.
Oh, the reason why we were flipping out is because there's a shark that's constantly after you,
and he's slowly eating your boat.
Yeah, you have to like stab him to get him off your raft.
I think the biggest issue I had with that game was how quickly your food depletes.
Yes,
we were always hungry.
Oh my goodness,
we were always dying. Actually, we were always dying.
Yeah,
at least I was.
Eventually, we kind of figured it out a little bit once we had built up like a little storage
grills
of food.
And
you know what's
we
weird?
had a person like that was cooking the
we
meals.
Had jobs.
Yeah.
You know what's weird though? I totally forgot about that, but the development team has an issue with food depletion or food like the amount of food you eat in games, because they made scrap mechanic survival.
Oh,
and that was probably my biggest issue with the game is you can't hold food. I mean, food just disappears. Mm-hmm. It was so irritating.
They try to make the game unnecessarily difficult by adding faster food depletion.
Yeah,
which is annoying. Like they did with Resident Evil 2, the remake, how they made zombies have like 5 or 6 hits before they die. So they kind of inflate the difficulty a little bit.
Yeah.
Like unlike Last of Us, where ammo is scarce for a reason, and you can kill enemies with like one shot most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Clickers 2 shots.
Yeah. But Resident Evil, basically you shoot them 10 times and all your ammo's gone. What do you do now?
Yeah.
It's not your fault that you ran out of ammo.
Yeah. There were times where I did get annoyed with that in Resident Evil 2, but I think it's more of an issue in Raft and scrap mechanic survival.
Yeah. I never really got into scrap mechanic survival. It just never really interested me much.
Yeah, I played it for a little bit, and I made a couple tutorials, and then I made a video on why it wasn't ready or why it wasn't worth it.
If you think about games like Subnautica, like the food depletion and the water depletion is not like to the point where it's annoying, but it's like, oh, I just have to go and get some food. It doesn't really affect you that much.
Subnautica is actually the perfect example of what a survival game should be.
Yes.
I've never played it.
It's unique, but it still has the core survival mechanics like food, water,
Health.
shelter, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a completely different take on it, which is why that game is so good.
Yeah.
It was in early access for like 5 or 6 years, maybe longer.
It came out in like 2013 or something.
Yeah.
Really? That long? Oh, in early access.
In early access, and then it
okay.
came out in like 2018, I think.
I'm actually doing my next video on top 5 survival games on Steam.
Oh,
and
really?
Subnautica's on there, yeah. I also have The Forest.
That is a good game, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, Subnautica is also, it could technically be a horror game.
kind of, yeah.
I mean, it's not made to be like that, but I know multiple times when I was playing it, I got scared.
Big creatures.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the Reaper Leviathan.
Yes.
Massive creature that just like will stalk a certain area, and you have to go in that area to get supplies.
Huh.
And you never know where they're gonna be.
That's pretty creepy.
Yeah, but the feeling like when you're on the top of the ocean, you're floating, and you look down and it's dark. That's the feeling Subnautica gives you everywhere you go.
That's probably my biggest fear is being stranded in the middle of the ocean and not having any way out.
Yes.
Because I have a crippling fear of sharks. I've always had it. So sharks can breach the water at like 25 miles per hour.
Yeah,
Literally
that's horrifying.
so fast. And you can barely move. I mean, you can barely move. I don't know what, like 5 miles per hour in the water. I mean,
Something
you
like
can't really
that.
swim that fast. And imagine being stranded in the ocean, looking down. It's completely dark, knowing that there's actually not knowing what's down there.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
That's what the scary part is, the unknown.
Exactly.
Well, in Subnautica, when you go very deep down, if you're like 1,000 meters down in a cave, even if you're in your giant submarine,
Isn't 1,000 meters down a shark movie?
40
is that
meters
100?
down.
Something
okay.
like that?
I
Yeah.
think it's 40.
something like that, yeah.
They made a second one. I don't think it was.
I heard it
well
was
received.
terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't well received.
But you see just pitch black, and all you can see is maybe 15 feet in front of you with your light, and it's terrifying.
I gotta try it sometime. Definitely.
you get
It's
it for
definitely
free
a
on
game
Epic?
worth
I
playing.
have it on Epic free.
Yeah, you should try it.
Maybe I'll try it and then we can do a podcast on it.
I've been
Yes.
wanting to play it. I've actually not played it through since it fully got released. I played it so much, like 40, 50 hours before while it was in early access. But then it came out and I never actually finished the story.
Okay, so there's an ending.
There is.
Yes.
Is there? There's actually story.
There's a story, yeah.
Huh.
It involves your spaceship goes down in the beginning, and that's why you're stranded. But you can go around and you can find other crew members that were stranded there before you, and you listen to audio logs, and there's a whole sequence with like mystical creatures and stuff.
Yeah, aliens. They're building everything on the planet.
That's
Alien
actually
weapons.
interesting.
It's
It
it's
is.
really cool game.
Now, I don't know. I don't think this is a spoiler, but are the same character that you are in the first game?
no, you're not.
Okay.
You're not the same character in Below Zero.
Oh, okay.
It's a totally different thing.
Is it a story too?
There is a story, yeah, and there's voice acting in in Below Zero.
There's not in the first one.
There was.
is,
Your-
but
the only
not your
difference is-
character.
Yeah, the main character doesn't have any voice,
Okay.
but the audio logs are audible.
But in Below Zero,
spoken.
you're talking with a friend the whole time.
Okay.
It's a little different.
Yeah.
You have to play Subnautica, and I can kind of explain what Below Zero
I have the
is.
first one, so
It would be definitely worth a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll get into it and
Maybe
we can
next
work that
month.
out.
Maybe next month.
I'll have
Yeah,
to play that
because-
again.
After this whole month of horror games, I got to get back into Red Dead. Finish that.
Yeah.
It's gonna take you a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe like 50 hours.
Yeah. Main story or
Just the main story, yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Well, I beat it at 60 hours. And I did
Oh.
some side quests and stuff,
Yeah.
but mainly the story.
Yeah, just about the same, but I did a lot of messing around too. So
Yeah. I like what I have. I like what I've seen so far. I already feel the character development. Like I'm already caring about some characters, and I only have like 10 hours in the game. Maybe.
Yeah. Just wait.
Yeah.
So now's a good time to jump into Little Nightmares. Chug, do you want to explain Little Nightmares a little bit?
well, according to the wiki, this is what the wiki says. Because it's kind of hard to explain what this game specifically is.
Mm-hmm.
It says it's a puzzle platformer in which a little girl named Six has to survive the horrors of the Maw, which is like a ship.
Yeah.
It's a ship in the middle of the ocean.
It's
And-
weird that that's in the description though, because you're not revealed that it's a ship until about halfway through the game.
That is true.
It's kind of weird. They kind of spoil some of the surprise, although there's so much more in the game. But I think for me, part of the reveal was that it was a ship.
Yeah.
Ah.
Well, I don't know because I know in the starting area, like 5 minutes in, you cross this, or you get in this this staircase, and it like zooms out, and you can kind of see
You see the chains.
and stuff. I don't know, that might be an indication, but
Possibly.
It doesn't confirm that it's a ship until later on.
yeah,
But pretty much the point of the game is her trying to escape.
right, yeah,
And I think a lot of the game is supposed to be like a child's interpretation of what's happening, because everything is kind of distorted. There are creatures with long arms, and there are people with distorted faces.
yeah,
Kind of like what 6 is 9 years old, so kind of like what a 9-year-old would see in the world. Even though it actually is horrible what's going on,
yeah,
it's probably distorted by her young brain.
right,
Everything is massive to her.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like the humans are ginormous,
Mm-hmm.
which I was looking on the wiki and it said humanoid. So I don't even know if they're fully supposed to be humans.
yeah. That's something we can get into when we get into the lore.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just to clarify, we are gonna do a spoiler half of this one as well. First part, we're gonna be talking about the atmosphere, kind of like a general idea of the game, the mechanics, the things we like about it. Later, we'll get into the story and some of the deeper aspects. Also, we'll also be talking about the DLC story part too. So,
I actually want to say Little Nightmares is in my top 10 favorite games.
Yeah.
I just played it now. I know you guys recommended it to me a while ago. I had it on my Switch, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something. I played through a couple hours and then I got rid of my Switch. I'm really happy with the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's weird because it starts out somewhat slow. Like, you can play it and maybe say, okay, I don't really want to play this anymore. But once you get to the halfway point, you really like the game.
Yeah.
But once you beat it, you don't regret any second you spent in the game.
Yeah.
It's worth it for the ending.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's not like the ending was surprising or anything.
Right.
I mean, there are some, I wouldn't say twists, but little things that are surprising. But just the whole game, it kind of comes together at the end.
Yeah, and throughout the game, it's kind of like the game gives you little bits and details, but for the most part, you're in the unknown. And you kind of have to
Yeah.
piece things together, which I really like.
And there's no dialogue at all.
Yeah.
So the game tells the story by the environment and also by the events that happen to the characters. Or
What is it?
character.
In each section, and there's technically like a certain amount of chapters in the game. We're not going to spoil anything that happens, but in each section, more and more like stuff goes through your brain as you're playing through it.
Yeah.
Like this I'm not going to say specifically, but the first chapter is kind of basic. You kind of like, what is happening?
It's a reveal to kind of get you acquainted with the mechanics.
Yeah.
And then every chapter has their own villain, basically, that you have to fight or avoid. The first one is leeches. You run into them within 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
But from there, it's just giant humanoid creatures that are actually scary.
Yeah.
But
They're
once
actually
you
pretty
get
scary.
towards the end, you're kind of like, oh, that's why this was there, or it like makes sense in your head.
Yeah, it's like that's what I was saying. Like you piece it together slowly, but even by the end, you still don't know everything.
You don't.
Which I like. I hate games that give you too much.
Yeah.
Or a game will cause intrigue and you'll be like, "Oh, what's that?" The next 10 minutes they tell you the exact answer of what it was. You're like,
Yeah,
"Come
too
on,
much
let me
exposition.
think about it." Yeah.
I remember there was one part where there's a mirror that broke, and there was a chair behind it. It was a two-way mirror. And you're
Oh,
like,
right.
wait, why are they watching people in the bathroom here?
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things that little things will happen that if you think about it for 5 minutes, you're like, wait, that's actually really creepy.
Very unsettling. If any of you have listened to or watched any Tim Burton movies, it's got that vibe. It's very Tim Burton-esque.
The
It is.
music, the
The
character
music,
design.
the music is amazing.
I love the music.
I know.
It's so good. Yeah, Caroline.
Was that Coraline?
Coraline,
Something like that.
Caroline,
Something
yeah.
like that.
But I do have to say, you guys mentioned the music. the music made the game good.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It was good without it, but the music just amplified that.
Oh yeah. That's what I meant.
Yeah, there were moments where I forget which moment it was. I think it was when the guy with the long arms, the janitor, was after you. No music at all, nothing, and I was almost expecting.
Wasn't it Heartbeat?
Yeah, that's the only.
I think
thing
you're
hear.
referring to the end person where there was no music and you were running around. You're like, this is so unsettling.
Yeah. Well, no, in the DLC when you're in that dark room with the coal, there's no music. The only thing you can hear is your
with the
heartbeat.
gnomes. I want to talk about the gnomes. They're so cute.
Yes.
Yeah.
These little creatures called gnomes, Nomes, run around and you can actually hug them.
They're so cute.
They're just cute little creatures. They kind of they take away from the horror a little bit and add a little bit of cuteness factor.
But that's like such a huge thing with the game is like there's this weird paradox where it's so cute yet it's so disturbing at the same time. Like, it's weird. It has this duality where it's playing with these two ideas, and it's like that's why I think of like Tim Burton. You know, it's like it's weird. He makes things that are supposed to be cute unsettling.
Chug mentioned to me before the podcast that the game was almost called Hunger, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. No. I'm pretty sure it was like confirmed it was called Hunger, but then they changed it.
They didn't want it to be called or confused with Hunger Games or something like that.
Yeah.
But a huge theme of the game revolves around hunger. And part of that is monsters eating children, which is incredibly dark.
Yeah.
And the whole game revolves around that, basically. All the monsters want to get you and eat you.
Yeah.
Six gets hungry throughout the game, and she eats various things.
Which is a key thing that I want to talk about in the spoiler section. I do want to talk to you guys about it.
There's so many underlying meanings and transformations that happen, especially with something like with I know what you're talking about. We'll talk about it later, but it's kind of crazy. It's really good.
Yeah. And the DLC, there's a DLC too, which is actually happening simultaneously to the main game, but you play as a different character.
Yeah.
So some of the events actually coincide.
Yes.
Specifically the end, which
and a few parts in the middle
makes you feel really, really bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're not going to say until the spoiler section, but the ending. You were so mad at that last night.
I was mad, yet I was also not depressed. Like I didn't want to do
you were
anything.
sad.
I was sad, which is a huge thing that I wanted to mention. Is the game? The game took me. The main game took me 3 hours to beat. The DLC took me another maybe 3, 4. The DLC actually took me longer. So it's not maybe like 5-6 hours in total with DLC.
Yes.
The game is so short, but without any dialogue, it makes such an impact.
It does.
You actually start to like the main characters, and you feel for them, along with like the little gnomes running around and stuff too.
Yeah.
Just they're the only normal things in this horrifying world. So you kind of relate to them, I guess. It's probably a better word for it.
Sympathize.
Maybe,
yeah.
That's a better word. Because they're cute and everything else wants to destroy them.
Yeah.
So you feel bad for them.
Yeah.
And you want them all to be fine. But there's a section where I noticed you did it. You went to this room. I didn't when I played it recently. There's a dead gnome up top. And it was sad because there was food all around him. Like, you wonder why he died.
Oh, right.
Just little details like that you don't even have to go in that room. You can just happen in there and find it.
Yeah.
Wait, was it because of he couldn't eat? Did the gnomes not have any mouths?
I don't know.
I don't know. Or he didn't want to. He
wanted to die, maybe?
I don't know. Yeah, there's
a lot of meanings.
Yeah. Near the beginning of the game, this isn't a spoiler or anything, but I think it's like the third room you go into, there's this long figure hanging. He hung
you
himself.
only see his legs.
Yeah, you only see his legs, and they're long, and he's just hanging, and it's.
And there's a note on the
I
ground.
want to bring up
weird.
2 things about that. There's 2 theories. The first one is that he is the janitor's brother. The janitor is a creature with long arms, the first main creature you face. But this other creature has long legs.
Yeah.
There's a specific room where you see another picture that looks like the janitor, but it's not quite him. So people think that could be his brother that killed himself because of all the horror that's happening on the Maw. But in Little Nightmares 2, there's a confirmed character called the Tall Man, who looks like a ghost. and he pretty much matches up the exact figure of the Hanging Man. So he could be a character that died in Little Nightmares 1, and then he's a ghost in the second game.
There's a third theory actually, because
I think I know what you're going with the third theory, but you want to save that for the
it's
spoiler
not so much
section?
it's not so much of a spoiler. I'll be vague about it.
Okay.
But the third theory suggests that there are like you said, there are more characters that aren't all in that game, but there's a mobile game that expounds upon that. It
A
actually
prequel,
shows,
yeah.
Yeah, a prequel, which shows where 6 came from. There's a character called the Teacher, which isn't in the first game, and her husband is another man. You only see his legs in the picture, so they think that, or he was the manager of the mall or something like that. He had control over like a lot of the functions there, and one of the theories is that it's kind of like what you were saying with the brother, if it was that theory, but he got so guilty from all the horror that was going on in the mall that he hung himself.
I think it's safe to say that that's the reason he hung himself.
Yeah.
There's a suicide note on the ground that you don't get to read.
It's not even open.
No, you can't even look at it at all. And I saw videos of people going into the game files, and it doesn't say anything. Because actually, people have discovered tiny details by just examining the game files themselves, which is pretty cool. Like, they just left details in there for people to find later on.
Wait, the other theory, I thought you were going to mention this, but...
There's a fourth theory?
It's a possibility that was Six's father.
Maybe. But
I don't know how that ties in with anything.
There's a character that wasn't released in the game called the Ferryman.
Yeah.
And that is how Six got to the mall in the first place. You don't know the guy's motives, like whether good or bad, because I heard that he actually helps children. I don't know why he would bring Six to the mall in the first place. So
maybe to save?
You actually see pictures of him in the game, but he's not actually in the game.
Huh.
Yeah. There's... you mentioned... What was his name? The Ferryman?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a couple locations. There's the mall, but then there's... Like I said in the prequel, there's actually a place called the Nest, where
isn't there a house or something?
It's a big house in the water or something super tall, and that's where the mobile game or whatever, the prequel, that's where it takes place. So it's possible.
What is that called? Littlest Nightmares or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. But that's where the picture I was talking about. That's where it is, and I'll talk about it later more in depth. But that's where the picture is. So it's possible that it could be Six's dad because she came from the Nest. All children come from the Nest, and then they get brought to the mall by the Ferryman. Or I don't know why he helps people. I know he transports.
That's what I said on the wiki, is that he actually sympathizes with the children and helps them sometimes.
Oh, okay.
I think there are actually Little Nightmares comics too.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah. Actually, I haven't looked into them already, but whatever. But we'll talk about it later. But it's interesting that you say that the wiki says that he sympathizes with children, because that's kind of a key thing in most all of the characters in the game that I want to talk about later. So it's weird. It's like we only have so much to talk about in the non-spoiler version or section, but yeah, no, there's a lot to it. We could talk about the puzzles, which are basically what the game is about.
Most puzzles aren't hard.
They're not.
With the exception of the DLC puzzles, which are actually just a little ridiculous.
Well, it's the last DLC puzzles.
Yeah.
Because the first, basically how the puzzles are set up is they're more linear, and
like it could be like there's a key on a table, but there's a monster next to the key. You have to distract the monster, grab the key, and unlock the door.
Yeah.
But in the DLC, there will be like random books on the ground, and you have to figure out which shelf they go on, and then you got to figure out what to do next. And it's not linear at all.
Yeah. The main issue with the last DLC puzzles, which I have no idea why they went this direction, is the difference is in all other puzzles before that one, you know your end goal. You see it. You see the start and you see the end. You see the key and you see the door you need to unlock. It's up to you to just figure out what you need to do to get to that point. In the end DLC, you see the first part and you have no idea the rest of the steps. You don't even see them. That's why it's so confusing. That's why you can't see. That's why it was so hard. And that's why probably it took me longer than the first game.
I think it did for me too.
Yeah.
It's just a very odd direction to go after having the first game, or the first part of the game be so linear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that it's weird. I think I like the story aspects in the DLC more than the first game, but that doesn't make the first game not good. What I mean is I already had a grasp on the lore, and the DLC just made it even better, in my opinion. I don't know. It's weird, but both are great, but I just like the extra lore.
Yeah, like the granny in the DLC.
Yeah.
Oh.
She's called the granny.
Ugh.
It's just creepy.
That was so creepy. I loved it, but I hated it.
I hate it, but I love it.
Wait, there was
Yes.
no creature in the second part.
No, it's just mainly puzzles.
Yeah.
In the DLC?
Yeah. The second part where you have to collect the gnomes and then have them throw the coal into the fire.
Yeah,
There
that's
was
another reason I like the DLC.
Yeah.
Is that it expounds upon the gnomes, and you actually have to work together with them.
Yeah. There was the janitor in the dark room. You have to get one gnome, and you have to go past him in that dark room, which I did not like that area.
Yeah.
Huh.
I didn't
Yeah,
realize. I forgot the janitor was in that part.
Yeah.
The game
I
does-
love the gnomes.
I know, they're adorable. But the whole game does such a good job with building tension. There's one part with the guests. Remember the part where you're running from them?
Yeah.
The music is just insane there, and they're like inches from you,
Yeah.
and you jump and grab the thing.
Yeah.
It's just such an intense scene. It's probably one of my favorites in the game.
I'd
Yeah.
say probably the most terrifying part where it builds tension and doesn't let you go is
The last scene,
yeah.
or pretty close to the last scene anyway.
Yeah, so there's a figure and it sees you, and then you run through a series of doors, and there are these mannequins that look identical, and I was running through the rooms and I was constantly in paranoia. I kept thinking that one of the mannequins was the figure after me. I was terrified, and it lasted for like 5 minutes.
And the terrifying part about it is that the other creatures, you can see them, and you know when you anger them because they'll screech and sprint
Yeah.
after you. But with this one, you break an object, and normally the creatures will run after you when they hear the sound, but you break the object and the creature stops making noise, and it's just complete silence.
It's hunting you.
Yeah, and you got to
Yeah.
run around. You don't know where this creature is going to be next, or if it's going to attack you next.
Mm-hmm.
Then you actually see it, and it makes that really creepy noise.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
It's just, that part is perfect.
Yeah, and there is. I mentioned this last week, but in the Resident Evil 2, but I did not like the boss fights in Resident Evil 2. And don't get me wrong, there's not. I mean, Little Nightmares is a puzzle game. It's not a boss fight game, but there is somewhat of a boss, kind of like a boss fight towards the end.
Multiple, actually.
Actually, no, you're
Yeah.
right. You're
Yeah.
right. Actually, yeah, there are a couple, but they're not your average boss fight. They're different. You have to,
There's still a puzzle.
Well,
Yeah,
actually,
there are
technically, the only quote unquote boss fight that you don't have
end.
to go through are the chefs. You don't actually do anything with them. You just escape from them. But the rest
so
of
there's
them, you have
two
to.
then in the main game.
Yes.
Yeah, and the last one and the first one, I guess, because you brought that up, are so good. I
Yeah.
was so satisfied with them, and
Yeah.
it's not like infuriating. It wasn't like Resident Evil 2 where it just makes you.
Yeah, you realize there's a
incapable.
trick to it, and that if you're dying, it's your own fault.
Yeah,
Like, once you figure out the trick, you're like, oh, okay. Then you beat the monster, and you feel so good. Because you know this monster has been after you for, I don't know, half an hour to an hour, and now you just stopped it from
Yeah.
attacking you, no matter what
It feels
mode
good.
that is, whether killing it or just disabling it.
and I said last week that I think I mentioned this. I'm pretty sure, but I said that I don't think horror games should really, in the most part, have boss fights. They should have
Yeah.
more big scenes. This game makes me redact that.
Yeah, redacted.
I go back on my word because this game does it so well. This game restored my faith in horror game boss fights,
Yeah.
and it's
Which
only
is,
like,
that's really hard to do, honestly.
yeah. I don't know. It's only a 3-4 hour game.
I'm just really curious to see where they're going to take it in the second game.
I'm
Oh,
interested.
that actually reminds me. I wanted to mention other similar games, Limbo and Inside.
Yes.
They're two platformer horror style. I don't know if I'd call it inside horror, but it's definitely creepy.
Yeah,
I love those games. They're incredible.
I want to play them. They look interesting.
I think Inside was only a couple hours.
3 hours for me.
Really short game, but it's another one that it's by Playdead. I thought it was by the same people who did Little Nightmares, but it wasn't. They do such a good job of telling a story, slowly revealing details as you go along, and then at the end there's this big reveal that you're like, oh, that's amazing.
I gotta play
The
this.
ending's weird of Inside.
Yeah,
Remember that, Chuck?
yeah. You just look at the game. You're just like, what?
You're
the
like, how
fuck?
did I get from this point to this point at the end? Like, it's a completely different game all of a sudden.
I really want to play it now.
You should play that next, honestly.
Yeah.
Play Inside. I mean, Limbo is good,
Yeah.
but
It didn't bring out the same emotions as Inside did, though.
yeah,
Limbo is purely puzzle.
Yeah.
Inside actually has a story.
These type of games, like Little Nightmare, I know you mentioned it the other day, Jay, but they kind of remind me of Little Big Planet 2 platformers that you would see
Yeah.
on the community page and stuff. A lot of people would actually make games like this. I know I made a level that was kind of like Inside, I think. It was like the dark colors, only a few
In
colors.
a cave or something.
no,
Yeah.
Limbo is the black and white. That's what Limbo is.
Yeah.
But Inside is full color.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I don't know. It really reminds you of like Little Big Planet 2 platformers, which is really nice. It's
Yeah.
nice to see that.
Because the environment is so limited with what you can do with it. So you only have a few layers to work with, basically. And they had to tell a story without dialogue, with barely any cutscenes. Like, the cutscenes they did have were minimal.
Yeah.
I barely even remember them.
Beginning and end. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the in-between parts, they had to tell a story by the environment and the background. Like, whatever's happening, like the guests marching and stuff. Wasn't that scene creepy?
It was, yeah.
Like, you didn't know what the heck was happening. And the music is just weird there. I love
At
it.
that point, I knew a little bit about the game, but I can gather that a new player that doesn't know anything would have probably had a minute and then connected some sort of line to what the whole game centers around, which I think that's like the gold part of this game, is that it gives you enough for you to piece together the rest, and even then you don't have all the pieces of the puzzle.
When you find out, you're like, nah, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah,
Nah.
it's like, oh man,
Please.
it's so unsettling, but it's so good.
Chug, what are we at for time? I kind of want to start talking about spoilers pretty soon.
Is there anything else that we need to talk about before
The game, if you wanted to play this game, it is a little expensive, but if you can get it on sale, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I'd pay $30 for a 6-hour game.
Is it 30?
I don't know how much normally it was.
Well, on
It was 20, I
PC,
think. Or I don't know.
if you go to like G2A or GameGate or something like that, you probably get it for like $2-3.
I got it for 11 with the DLC, which I recommend getting the DLC.
Yes.
If you're gonna
Oh,
play the
yeah.
first game, you're gonna want to play the DLC.
You have to.
Yeah. It just completes the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been weird. I heard it got some criticism because the way the DLCs were released were the first episode came out, and then like 2 months later, the next episode came out.
Yeah, it was like a
Or the chapters.
month-to-month thing.
So the first one was the granny one, and then the gnome one. It took a bunch of months for all of them to be released. So people were disappointed with certain ones as they slowly came out.
Huh.
I feel like altogether, it's not disappointing. It's well
Yeah.
worth it. But if you had to wait in between, I could see why that's disappointing.
Yeah, I can see that too, actually.
All right. Do you
What I
think
say?
you guys want to get into the spoiler
Yeah.
section?
Spoiler
Yeah.
alert. Turn back now
Yeah.
if you're planning on playing the game.
And actually, this game, if you haven't played it and you want to play it, just don't listen to this
Yeah, I was
part.
gonna say this isn't like the Resident Evil 2 one. Like you should. I mean, if you haven't played it and you want to play it, I would not listen to the spoilers, because that's a big part of what makes the game so great, is figuring things out for
The
yourself.
gameplay is like 25%. The other 75% is the lore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so.
Caleb went in knowing some things.
Yeah,
The best point of view going into this game is knowing nothing.
yeah, I agree.
So
Definitely. Let's see. How about the?
Let's talk about the janitor a little bit. The first monster you face.
I mean, it's not really spoiler, but yeah, we could talk about.
he's
that.
the guy that wraps the children up.
Yeah. So he has a job of what? He's taking.
He takes
He's the
care of the
prison
kids.
keeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, he captures them, the runaway kids, and then he wraps them up and puts them on the hooks to send them to the chef.
Yeah, and like little body bags.
Yeah.
Oh, what's interesting is that that you see prison keeper. There's this really unsettling room where it's a play place, I guess you can call it, with like a little train and those little
Oh,
cubes.
and
with
electric bars on either
and there's
side?
electric bars on each side. It's unsettling.
I never thought about that, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, it's this little nursery with electricity keeping the children in.
It's
And if you touch it, you die instantly.
Yeah.
It's really creepy. But he's probably I wouldn't say he's the scariest in my opinion. I think probably the granny takes that.
Wait, you mentioned body bags before, like the janitor wraps the kids up.
Yeah.
Did you ever go into the freezer and see the pile of body bags?
The empty ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The empty body bags and just a big pile.
Yeah. It's creepy because it goes from the body bags to
The chef.
But there's like this little ramp where this blood is just like leading to the kitchen. And that's where you piece together.
Oh, no.
Yep, you're like, oh man, this is not going to be good.
Well, there's mine carts full of body bags and bodies, and so you're just like, wait, hold up,
Yeah.
What are they doing
It
to
looks
these
so
kids?
cute and innocent, yet there are bodies of people that are going to be eaten.
It was all kids, though.
Not all of them.
Really?
The guests were eating themselves.
Yeah, I heard a theory where some of those pieces of meat were too big to be the children. The children, I think, are the sausage. They grind them into sausage.
Ugh.
And I think the bigger pieces of meat were the guests.
Well, not necessarily, because you see these giant, like, ham-sized chunks.
True, yeah.
You throw them into the meat grinder, and they become sausage.
Wait, so
Yeah.
so the guests after the feast would be killed and then turned into meat?
Yeah.
Well, so, basically, if you go to the Little Nightmares site, they talk about the maw and the guests, and they say the guests never leave one way or another.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. They were very vague about it.
Yeah.
It's assumed that the lady sucks in their souls or whatever and consumes their powers so she can stay young. That's the entire reason they're there.
Yeah.
So she can take their souls, I guess. But it's also implied that they're eaten and saved for the guests the next year.
Yeah.
And by the way, I did read about this too. They're there by choice. They
Yeah.
know they're gonna die.
They're just there to consume.
They just
as
want
much
to eat as
possible.
much as possible and then die. That's pretty much the entire reason they're there. And they know that they're there for that reason.
Yeah. Earlier we were talking about the name. It was first Hunger, then it got switched to Little Nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
There is a little bit of there's like this weird, I don't know how to say it, but there's a hidden reason why the title is Little Nightmares is because the lady, she hates children so much, which is probably partially why she does this, but because they're I don't know, like more beautiful than her. Which you see that in the DLC where she's or also the first game. But in her mind, it's like they're little nightmares. And I was like this weird play on
I haven't heard of that.
words.
It's
Yeah, it's
interesting.
pretty interesting because also another thing is when you see her looking at herself in the mirror, some people analyzed it and what's in the mirror doesn't match her face. And they've went in the game files and seen her face and it doesn't match what's in the mirror.
So they added that during the DLC because the granny was the previous lady. She got too old or something, and so they cast her into the bottom of the maw, and that's where she lives permanently. So when they actually created the granny, they took the granny's player model and stuck it on the lady's face. So it actually is the same exact player model for the face.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So maybe that's what they intended before, but they just didn't model the face underneath.
Yeah. Because
I'm
some
not sure.
people are analyzing when they were looking at the DLC and they saw the mirror and her face, they were thinking that it could be that is a picture of her soul, or that's how she sees herself psychologically. So that's why she's always trying to get rid of the kids and children.
What I'm confused about is how was she able to look into the mirror without it breaking? The only mirror that wasn't broken was the one you used to kill her in the main game. So how is she able to look into another mirror?
I saw some people say that it was reflecting her own powers on herself when she wears that mask or something like that. Like the power that she was trying to put towards 6 when you're fighting her was like reflected back to her. But
That would make more sense.
yeah, I forget you just said something. I was gonna tie it in.
The player model of the granny.
Oh, the granny was previously the lady, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's this weird thing. I mentioned it earlier, but the nest is another location. They're in the Littlest Nightmares or whatever, the mobile game. There's a little girl named the Pretender, and she's actually the successor of the lady, or she's gonna be, or whatever. I don't know. And she has powers, and so it's weird because in the second game trailer, you get this like idea that there's this man. I forget his name, but he's like the controller of everything. And there's like this system. People get replaced. Like the granny was cast down in the bottom of the maw. And I was saying it before, but what happens is people like the janitor, they went into like the game and they saw him, and apparently the other monsters or whatever, they're not happy with where they are. So they're forced into some sort of labor. Like in the Littlest Nightmares, there's a guy named the butler, and both of his arms are tied behind his back with a lock because he has telekinesis powers or something.
Oh, okay.
So what they do is they suppress people that are a threat to them. And so it's like what you were saying with the ferryman. He sympathizes with the children. He probably has some sort of power, but what they do is they suppress him, they put him in labor, and they're not happy. And for generations, they just keep that same job so that the people in power are still in power.
Wait,
It makes you wonder who's controlling the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, like the chef and the janitor, not the guests. The guests actually look like that because they're disgusting freaks.
Yeah.
Masks.
But yeah, the janitor and the chefs are wearing masks because they look better, and the lady doesn't want to see them.
Yeah.
That's another theme is masks. The lady wears one. The chefs wear one. I don't know about the janitor, honestly.
I think he does.
It looks like the skin that grew above his face or something.
I don't know.
Because his
maybe
his ear was coming out of that skin.
Maybe he had the same thing he puts the kids in wrapped around his head.
A body bag? I don't know.
Maybe like some sort of wrap. Because it looked like he had wrapped something around.
It did look like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know the chefs for a fact have a mask on.
Yeah, you
see them lift
moving.
it up and scratch it.
Yeah.
Like scratch underneath it.
So she constantly wants she wants people to look uglier
worse than her.
Yeah.
But what about the guests though? Like those aren't masks.
No.
They're just hideous people.
Yeah.
I think they just are just so fat. They just
It's
eat
gross.
and eat
But their
and
faces look melted.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's part of just Six's projection of her own interpretation of what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
possibly.
Well, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Little
think?
Nightmares.
Oh, true.
Everything is big for her. When you're a kid, everything seems taller than it is. Everyone seems older than they are.
Yeah.
You know, things seem scarier than they really are. That's just the way kids think.
Yeah. I've seen some people talking about this, like how 6 is relative to the size of everything else. And it's weird. Like there's some like, I don't know, it's not exactly sure, but she could actually be that small.
Well,
because of the
what's
size
weird,
of everything else.
You think about the Hanging Man. There's a chair in the room that he used to stand on, and also 6 uses it to unlock a door in the room. That door is massive compared to 6.
Yeah.
But that guy wouldn't have been able to sit in that chair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, what is the point of that chair? He would never have been able to sit in it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. But actually, you said, I wonder who the person is controlling all of this. There is a name for him. Because in the trailer, or not even the trailer, but the poster, there's like a figure in front of this tower that controls all the, citizens or whatever, and basically keeps some people suppressed. I forget his name, but there's some name for him. And the other player that you play, Mono.
That's in the second game?
Yeah, in the second
okay.
game. Some people are thinking that he might have been the person that was being groomed to be that next guy or whatever. And so you see him like take power from the TVs in the trailer, and they're thinking that he can't be suppressed by that controller guy or whatever. But the others are basically forced into slavery because they're not happy there. Like,
well, I'm interested to see what's going to happen in the second game because 6 has the lady's powers now.
yeah,
I wonder how that's going to translate to gameplay.
me too. Yeah, I'm curious.
That's going to be cool. And if Mono has powers too, I bet they're going to feed off of each other and use it to solve puzzles.
That's gonna be really interesting.
Yeah.
Bigger area too. You're gonna be in the city or
City,
the
really?
mainland, huh?
I hope they make it as creepy as the first one.
Yeah, me too. That's one thing that I'm worried about. Is it's kind of like how I don't know what game it is, but when you have too much to work with, it almost gets rid of the paranoia.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fear of the unknown is what's creepy.
Yeah,
If it's a giant city that every one of us would know, like a city, that's not as scary because a boat we don't know what the bottom of a boat looks like, especially a boat like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just an unnatural environment.
Yeah.
And that's why it's creepy.
What about Shadow 6? This is what we
yeah.
were talking about. what
yeah,
we
I
wanted
read
to talk
something about
earlier.
that, but I wasn't sure what it was.
Every single time you feed, I never noticed it at all.
I didn't
I didn't
either.
even think it was there. But there's a dark version of 6 somewhere on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Even at the end of the game.
Do you have to turn the brightness up to see that?
I don't
think so.
know. I don't know. You could see it.
was
but
watching a video and he just-
you're not really focused on
Yeah.
everything
he panned
around.
to it or whatever, or the guy was
Oh.
watching.
Yeah. And at the very end of the game, when the lady's laying on the ground, behind her, I never noticed this either. Behind her, it's just standing there in the darkness.
That's creepy,
That's
actually.
something that brings up what I was going to say earlier is that I love how you don't turn to kind of do turn to the dark side, but not really. But it's weird because you're so helpless, and yet it's almost like you succumb to the very thing that you hate so much, because she feeds on
A piece of bread.
and then it's a rat.
No,
Then
it's
the
a meat
in
and
the
then
cage.
rat.
Yeah, meat in the cage, and then the rat, and
then the gnome.
Yeah, and then the gnome.
Well,
So-
the
and then
gnome
the
part
lady.
is where you really see the transformation, because the gnome offered her a sausage.
Yeah.
Which maybe it was because she didn't want to eat human meat and she thought she wasn't going to be a cannibal. She didn't know that the gnomes were children,
Yeah.
which is the big reveal of the DLC, where the kid you play as gets turned into a gnome,
Yeah.
and it's the gnome that Six eats.
Yeah, the last part of that is you're against, or you're running away from the lady, and she transforms you into the gnome, and at that point you're like, oh no, and then you go down and you go down and you go down to the place where in the first game you saw Six
The
ignore the
guests.
sausage and eat the gnome, and then you walk into this room and you're the gnome, and you were playing as the boy, and then you just see the sausage in a spotlight, and then that's when it hits you. And then
Well,
you
there
realize,
were a couple other gnomes in the room, so you're hoping that you run out, because it's a cutscene at that point, right?
yeah,
Pretty much, yeah.
You're hoping that your character runs out and it's another gnome, but all the gnomes leave the room and
Yeah.
it cuts to black.
and you're just standing there with a sausage next to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
they don't
then
even
the
have to
credits.
show it again. You just
Yeah.
you know what's gonna happen.
But that's what I love about it is like they don't show you everything, even though you know what's gonna happen. You piece it together in your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, going back to Shadow 6, Shadow 6 was actually there in the room previously when going to the sausage.
so is that like
Oh.
Six's dark side?
It's her dark side, and what people think is towards the end, when she finally took the powers from the lady, they merged, and she became like this evil person.
So why did her dark side follow her around? Basically,
I don't know. People don't really understand the motives or why Shadow 6 was there, but
I mean,
she's
was
there.
her environment just twisting her mind as she went along,
Yeah,
which is possible because that's pretty horrifying for a child.
yeah,
Like maybe she just went insane.
Possibly.
yeah. It's like slow decline, kind of like what I said. Slowly decline, or slowly succumbing to what she was so terrified and hated so much.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to the gnome thing, that made me so upset because I walk in the room, I'm like, oh, this little cute gnome is holding me a sausage so I can
Yeah.
eat. Literally ignores the sausage and eats the gnome.
That's the contrast there, the cuteness and then the horribleness of it all.
Yeah. Wait,
And
it says
the
right-
worst part, maybe not the worst part, but what makes it worse is that the music just ramps up when
It
she eats the
does.
gnome, and you're just sitting there horrified. You're like, why?
It says
You had a
here-
choice.
It says here on the wiki, it says the animation of 6 walking at the end of the game when she kills the guests is labeled as Dark 6 in the game files, possibly hinting that both the Shadow 6 and her are combined in the end.
Oh, okay.
Another thing I thought was interesting was if you hug the gnomes, like any of the gnomes, they'll show up at the end of the game and watch
Yes.
Six go up the stairs.
As many
If
as you hugged.
If you don't hug the gnomes, none will show up.
Huh.
So when I played another time Sunday, I played the game in about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Not the DLC, but the main game. When I played it, I didn't have any gnomes watching me because I never hugged any.
That's interesting. Yeah, and it's weird because all those drawings that you see are mostly by the gnomes, because in the DLC you constantly see gnomes drawing on the wall and making little pictures and stuff, which I think goes back to how they were children, and the lady transformed them into
Actually,
gnomes.
one of my favorite parts in the DLC is when you walk into that room with all the gnomes by the furnace.
Yeah.
And you just stand there and you're just looking up at the furnace or something, and they're all just like staring. You're like,
it's
what?
so cute.
I know.
They like accept you or whatever.
Yeah.
And you help each other out. They help you
Yeah.
get up to the top. Oh, what was I gonna mention? I totally forgot.
Something about the gnomes?
It was something about gnomes, yeah.
Whatever
you were talking about
Sorry.
before.
How you transform into a gnome?
No, hopefully it comes back to me.
Speaking of the ending, I love that last scene where you consume the lady, not like all of her, but you bite her, or eat her, kill her, I don't know, and you consume her power or whatever, and you're just walking through the hallway, and there's all those fat people like that want to eat you, and then you just like snap their neck, and like you're
I know.
She's
They're
so
just dying.
I know. I was like,
And you're like,
yes.
yeah.
Even though everything horrible just happened, you're also satisfied with that this little girl is now, she has the ability to fight back.
Exactly. Yeah.
And nothing's going to hurt her now. She's
Yeah.
the one in control.
Which
And
is-
she's going to leave.
yeah. She breaks a cycle,
Yeah.
or yeah, we'll see in the next scene, but
Well, if there is a cycle, if that's what the cycle meant to be,
it's maybe
it could be possible that that's the whole point. Like the previous girl kills
that would be a
the new girl,
twist.
and then it
that
just,
wasn't the
boom.
cycle, what it was meant to be. Because of the granny. Yeah.
Oh, true.
Because they just cast her to the bottom.
There was the pretender that was being groomed at the nest.
okay.
That's another creepy thing, is that at the nest, they use the children. Some children get transported to the maw. Some children get killed there, and their skin gets used as dolls.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
There's like all this, it's not leather, but it's human skin. And there's like a doll maker. Oh, there is a doll maker actually. He's really creepy. He's like in a wheelchair, but his hands are on the wheelchair and his feet are, I don't know. His feet are on the wheelchair and his hands are down, but his feet are backwards or something like that.
That's
But
weird.
he's like a doll maker, yeah. But some theorize that it's possible that the controller man, or whatever his name is, since he's able to suppress the other special people that would possibly revolt against them, he could have the power to suppress Six's powers. Some people think that may kind of play into it, and then Mono is not affected by that, so he has the power to be able to fight back. But I
Oh,
don't
so
know.
like maybe in the second game, Six gets some sort of like disability from the person,
or
and
doesn't
then-
have her powers.
Or yeah,
Because I don't know how it's all going to play out, but I'm definitely excited for it. I don't know.
yes.
What else about the lore is really intriguing?
Oh, there's a lot. I'm really curious about why are the kids there? I know they like to eat everyone, but why do they need just kids? Like, remember the room full of shoes and the monster that's in there?
Yeah.
That's a lot of shoes, and those weren't kid-sized shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Those are like guest size.
Yeah, those are probably
size.
the guest
Yeah,
shoes.
the guests.
But they were huge.
What was in the shoes? We never actually saw what was in there.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
that's fear of the unknown. You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you knew, you wouldn't be as creeped out. Although the granny, when you see her face
Yeah.
and you see the hand come up out of the water, that's
Yes.
creepy right
That
there.
was so creepy. What was it? I forgot who I said was the granny's the creepiest, I think, in my opinion. Was there someone else? No, I think the granny was the creepiest in
I
my
think
opinion.
so. I think
Creepiest
so.
looking anyway.
Yeah, but also, I mean, when you're in the water, like, I don't know, there was times where it would get so close. You just see these bubbles, and then you see this hand start emerging.
It's different than the shoe room because when you get to the next suitcase or whatever in the shoe room, you're safe.
Mm-hmm.
The granny will whack the bottom of whatever you're standing on and knock you off. That's creepy. Like, you're not even safe anywhere until you get to the opposite end of the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
Another creepy thing is one of the rooms that you're in, you drain the water and you see that the furniture's tied down. So the granny lives down there and
Oh.
ties down the furniture, which is really creepy.
She just sits in a chair at the bottom.
Yeah, she's like this monster, but she still like enjoys, I don't know, furniture and having like a home.
It's so weird.
Really creepy. What do you guys think about the scare factor of the game? Because in my opinion, it's scarier than Resident Evil 2.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
there's jump scares.
There
But I
are
feel
only
like-
a few.
I feel like the thing that makes it scary is what you said before, the fear of the unknown. You have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
It's not about jump scares.
but there's the tension building and then the release of that tension.
Yeah.
Like you run into a room, you think you're safe, and then the janitor just flops down from the ceiling.
Yeah.
And it's scary because he's blind and he can't see you, but he can hear you. So you gotta quickly find a soft surface to walk on so he doesn't destroy you.
Or that one part in the guest section where I think it's like the end of the guest section where they turn into the giant wave.
Yeah,
Like
they're crashing through walls.
You just are nonchalantly just walking through this hallway. Then all of a sudden this door opens and there's like 6 of them in one room and they just start piling out.
Yeah, but the music is just crescendo right there.
Yeah.
And you're so close to their hands. They're about to grab you.
Yeah.
It's so intense. I don't think I've ever felt tension like that in another game.
Another thing is with the horror aspect is they build tension, and then like you said, like the janitor will fall down, but they don't release you. The tension builds up again because you have to get out of there. It's like a constant catch and release. Like it's like, I don't know. I've never had a game like that.
Yeah.
Like the section where you run from the janitor and you get stuck in the elevator with him and he shuts the door and you have to hide while he's feeling around the elevator looking for you.
Oh, that's right.
And you hit on the gate or the entrance to the elevator. You were just holding on up there, but when the door opened, you fell and he just grabbed you.
Yeah. It's scary.
It's a good game.
It is a good game. What was I gonna... you mentioned something... What were we talking about before?
Tension, gnomes, granny.
Oh, the guests. I did want to say... Well, I mean, at this point, spoiler if someone played the game, but it's just so gross. Because they're like these huge, fat... like
They're abnormally fat. They're just like disgusting and
their faces are distorted.
To make it even more gross... The bathroom, there are like 3 or 4 toilets almost touching each other.
Yeah.
Implying that they use it at the same time. And then there's a 2-way mirror where someone can sit and watch that. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of the whole watching thing because...
Eyeballs everywhere.
Yeah, in the DLC, you go to this like surveillance room type thing and you just see all the areas. Even some of the areas that... Oh, there was one... you know how it's simultaneously happening at the same time with the...
You see 6 on the camera, right?
This, in the shoe room, you see her moving around.
Do you think... I don't think the lady is watching them. I think it's just the fact that the guy who's over the whole ship was watching them, most likely.
Maybe
you never see him at all.
You don't.
The janitor's blind.
Oh, not the janitor. I mean, I don't know.
It's
What's
not the
name
chef.
of the guy?
Yeah, it's not the...
Oh, maybe the guy who
Tall
hung
man?
himself. I don't know.
Yeah, going back
possibly.
to that, we were talking about the theory, but I didn't want to say it. In the Littlest Nightmares game, the pretenders, the little girl that's being groomed to be the next lady, her mom and dad, the mom is the teacher, which is in the second game with the long neck. The dad is, you don't really see him, but he does have long legs, like in the portrait. So that could be who the guy in the ship was.
Yeah, and I'm sure
Possible.
he's the guy in Little Nightmares too. Tall man or whatever.
Yeah.
Because some guy took the assets, or he took the asset and the picture and compared them. It's the exact same shoes, exact same clothes, length of the legs and stuff.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same character.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think it's just interesting how like the chefs, they're not happy. They're forced to be in labor or whatever.
Yeah. No, it's weird. There are only 2 chefs. It seems like there are a lot more.
Was there 3? Oh
No,
no,
there's 2.
They're called the twin chefs.
Oh, okay.
Like they have the beds next to each other with the 2 pictures that are kind of melted into each other.
Yeah.
Do you think there was more sections of the boat with more chefs?
No,
or
they're called
those are the
twin
only
chefs.
2? Well, you said they're there all year making food, and then that one day all of them come in. So I think the janitor sends the chefs the food. Then the chefs, they make the food, put it in the freezers, and then once the guests come, they get all this food ready, and then they feed them.
You know what I thought was odd was the plates, or stacked up plates that were being washed. Why are they washing them even before the guests come in? Was it that there was just so many plates that it took them all year to wash them, or another reason? I don't know.
Maybe multiple guest people coming in.
Was it confirmed that there's only one day that the guests come?
It said on the website that the maw opens up once per year for the wealthy elite.
That's
I mean, it could be some sort of metaphor for people who just want to consume
yeah.
and just
Probably
have everything,
yeah.
while the kids are starving.
Oh,
it could be
so-
one of those class metaphor kind
So
of
like
things.
Yeah.
the fat people, they kind of represent people who are rich and all they care about is
Getting more and
getting
more
more and like greed and stuff.
yeah, and taking advantage and basically consuming the weak, which is the children, and their
Yeah.
faces are so ugly because their
soulless,
personality,
basically.
Their soul is
I don't know. I love that type of stuff.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
The game. That's what I was saying. The game has so many like dualities and this weird paradox with like cute and hideous and unsettling. It's
Yeah.
so good.
Which I might have said this before or I might have thought it, but it's weird how 6 does horrible things, yet you're still rooting for her.
Mm-hmm.
She eats the gnome, yet you root for her when she eats the lady. Even though it's horrible, like you wanted to just end it.
Yeah.
But then when she has the powers and she's sucking in their souls and killing them, you're rooting for her again.
Well, I think you're just so
Yeah.
sick of everything. You're like, screw it. I don't care anymore. It's just like
Yeah.
kind of.
I mean, at that point, I feel like they deserve it, and I don't know. Yeah.
I mean,
They just deserve
it looked
so
like
much.
all she wanted to do was escape. And those powers finally gave her
A
her
way to.
method of escape. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she wouldn't have been able to escape without the powers.
True. Yeah.
But then it makes you wonder why she did them in the first place and what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder how they get the supply of all the children. I mean, I know the mainland has people under the control of the main guy or like the head of everything. I wonder if they just reproduce to send them to the nest.
I remember what I wanted to say before. I saw a theory that there was another kid with a raincoat that escaped before 6. That's why there are drawings of 6 or another kid with a raincoat all over the place.
Huh.
Because there were already signs of a previous escape, like the rope made of sheets and stuff tied from a high balcony. Like someone already got up there and threw that rope down there.
Yeah, you see that in the DLC in the start. The
Yeah.
little girl threw it down.
And I saw a theory where it said another kid with a raincoat already escaped, and the gnomes and the other children kind of look up to that kid as a role model because she's the one that got out. Unless it was 6 and she was brought back. Who knows?
I know she has a raincoat in the mobile game, but that's a story on how she got to the maw.
Yeah.
And what's cool is I saw someone analyzing the very first room you end up in. And you know how you first see the lady and then she wakes up? So she
Yeah.
has a nightmare about the lady, so she probably knows her or something, or she knows about her. And you're in this little suitcase, but you see little pictures. And they were saying that, or the person that was analyzing was saying that she probably lived there for a little while.
I
Because
saw
she
that
had
too, yeah.
pictures in her suitcase.
Mm.
So I don't know why that day she decided to get up and go. Maybe because she knew that was the day of the maw or whatever it's called, the feast or
The
whatever.
feeding. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I think I saw a theory that the lady was actually her mother, which
They-
would make it even creepier.
Yeah, although the devs did come out and say that it wasn't her mother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I was curious about that. I was like, that would be interesting. And then I looked it up and the devs confirmed that it wasn't her mother. But
Did the devs confirm any other theories?
I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. I wouldn't want them to confirm too much.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
think they will. Because they like the
Well, they
the
might
mystery.
explain some stuff in the next game.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Depending on
People
what
are
they
counting
do.
on that,
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
but hopefully
really
not too
excited.
much.
Do you guys know when the release date for that is?
There's not. I don't think there is one.
I thought it said March 2021. That's what I can look it up
Well, I
real
mean,
fast.
knowing game developers now,
You never know.
you never know.
But they didn't release this one in early access, right? They just released it.
It was a full-fledged indie game.
Yeah. I like when
When they released
I
it.
like when developers do that. There's just too many that I don't mind having an early access like Phasmophobia.
February 11th, 2021.
Okay.
Oh, so soon, couple months.
Yeah.
We gotta make a podcast on that.
I hope it's not $60 though. Especially if I don't know. They haven't confirmed a price as far as I know.
$70 base price for.
Well, that's just
games.
PlayStation and Xbox. Let's not talk about that now.
Yeah, it's gonna get us heated.
Yeah. But hopefully it's like $20. I'd pay that.
Yeah,
Easily.
Even 30, I'd pay. Just because
Yeah.
I just like the lore so much, and I'm excited for it.
I'd probably play through it again and maybe analyze it myself.
Yeah,
Like that'd be really
try
cool.
to look for more sign or more little details and stuff.
Mhm.
I just hope they don't explain too much. Like I want more, but
But I do
like
hope
the
I do
mystery.
hope it's a little longer.
Yeah. Although it's so surprising. It took me 3 hours, but a 3-hour game is so packed with so much.
It is.
So a year later, or when was it released? 2017?
2017.
So, yeah, I think so.
This is 3 years later. People are still analyzing it and finding new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's from a little indie studio.
Yeah.
I mean, even like a giant studio like EA couldn't make something like that.
Yeah. That's like what we've said in the Little Big Planet 2, and like we've always said, it's just sometimes the little developers have only so much to work with, so they make the most out of it.
Yeah, the creativity amplifies the game.
Yeah.
Like a game devoid of creativity is fun for a little bit, but it's forgettable.
Yeah.
It is.
It's just another one of those AAA first-person shooters.
Yeah.
I mean, not to bash that. I'm looking forward to Cold War, but...
Yeah, me too, but still.
Yeah.
It doesn't stick with you.
Yeah.
Like Little Nightmares.
It's kind of like a temporary thing. Like when Black Ops 3 came out, everybody's like, yeah.
Yeah, it's, let me hop on and get a few kills and play a couple
then
rounds.
when Black Ops 4 came out, everybody's like, screw Black Ops 3.
Yeah.
And if they're not in the zombies, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. You don't feel the passion.
Yeah,
you don't feel the
it's a little
care
different.
into it. Yeah. Do you guys have anything else to say?
Buy the game.
Yeah, if you like anything horror, definitely play Little Nightmares.
Yeah.
It's much better on controller. I heard people saying it controls pretty horribly on keyboard and mouse.
Yeah, I wouldn't...
I mean, we're on PC and we still use controller anyway.
Yeah.
But...
It's a controller game.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Weren't you having issues, Caleb, with your controller or something?
Yeah, that's a separate... Or, well... I had an issue where an invisible wall showed up in the game.
Yeah,
but that's
that was the DLC.
Yeah, but then also, some of my controls were being weird, but...
Because I noticed in certain sections you were trying to grab items and you would just drop them. I don't know if that was a controller issue or the game.
It's possible. I'm not really sure. Either way, no matter what, I definitely prefer controller, and it should be played with controller.
Yeah. I mean, I've played it twice now, and I would play it again easily.
Yeah. That's kind of the good thing. You said the first playthrough was like 4 hours or something?
Something like that.
And then the next playthrough was like an hour for you.
Like, I was originally just going to play it for a little bit just to get the feel again. And then I realized, wait, I'm like a quarter way through the game. I'm just going to finish this today. And I did in like an hour and a half.
Yeah. Even looking back at it, on it, just thinking about it, it's not really that long of a game.
It's not.
It's just the first time through. You got to figure out the puzzles and stuff. But
yeah, I was surprised at how short it was to beat once I knew what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, it can be like that for any puzzle game too.
Yeah, true.
All right. I think we're going to end the podcast here. This game is actually amazing.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
as we said before, if you want to play it, then play it.
This isn't this isn't really a is it worth it, but
Yeah,
it is worth it.
it is, definitely. Even though it's short, it's packed with lore. It's one of those games where after you finish it, there's no doubt you're going to go on YouTube and look for lore videos and stuff
Yeah,
like
like
that.
Caleb was getting annoyed at parts. And I know I did too. But when he beat it, he's like, wow, that was a good game. And you completely forget about the frustrating sections.
There are a few games that can do that.
Yeah. And it makes it worth it.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of frustration is nothing compared to the reveals and stuff that happen at the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before we forget anything, make sure to tune into our live stream next Friday. It's the Friday it'll be the 16th of October.
Yeah. It'll be when this releases, it'll be in 2 days.
Yes.
If you're listening to it Wednesday.
But we're gonna be playing Resident Evil 7 all the way through.
Excited.
We're gonna do an all nighter. It's gonna be fun. Our first all nighter.
I don't think it'll be all nighter because we'll start early in the evening. So we'll probably finish early morning.
It'll be in the AM.
Technically all nighter because it'll be AM.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. There will be more information on that on the Discord server, which you can
We'll
find.
put a countdown on there and stuff.
Yeah.
Check out our Discord server too.
Yeah.
So, all right. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you in the next episode.